Let's go ahead and take a look at the transportation module, and let's look at what we can do there to configure it. So when the user has picked that they need transportation from the airport, it then gives the choices of train, bus, taxi, or Uber. And then we have the different multiple choice options for that. And the connections as to what happens when they do that. So let's take the train as an example. So when the user types either train 1 or they type out 1, it goes to the train information. Now, one thing that we could do here, and what we could take a look at now, is adding a card in here. Instead of using our text links, let me just go ahead and test this and you'll see what I mean. So we pick 1, and that takes us to our transportation module, and then we choose 1 again, which takes us to our train. And here I've created buttons which actually take you out to the website. And that gives the up-to-date information from the travel provider themselves. Okay, but I could make this look a little bit better. What I've used here is HTML buttons, and I'll show you how to do that in case you want to use that. So we go up to configure, and we see that, okay, when the user creates the connection train and 1, it then goes to our train info. And let's open up the train info then. And from train info then we get the following. So the entrance to the train station is in the corridor between terminals 1 and 2. Would you like to see information about the stops and schedules? And what I've done is create actually an HTML button, and you can use actually the button code for doing that, which is just nothing more than HTML text button and button off, and then I've linked it to the actual website. So that's one method that you can use in order to create a button. There's also, you can use the form method, and the form method then creates an action which opens up a URL, and you input the type of submit, which is the train button itself. So those are two different options for creating buttons in the motion.ai. But let's say we wanted to make it look a little bit better, and this is something that's brand new in motion.ai. It's just been there a couple weeks, is the ability to make what's called cards, which are actually buttons. So let's go and internally make buttons instead of using HTML. So I go here, add card. I'm going to put an image URL here, so something that is visual in the background. And what I did was I went and looked up the train station logo, and we're going to use that. So I'm just going to go and paste in that URL, and I'm going to put here the text. And I'm going to put airport train information here as the subtitle. And then I'm able to create the buttons. So the first button is going to be train info, and I'm going to go to a URL for that. So I'm going to go to Google and look up my train info, train schedule. And here it is for Helsinki, and so I'm just going to go ahead and link to that. Okay, now the second button, I'm only going to have 2 buttons in this one, but the second one I'm going to have is go back to the main menu. And I'm going to send the bot then to the main menu, and so I'll have to create something for my back button here. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, now let's go and create our back button, because right now we don't have any kind of interaction for the back. And I need to add a new connection. And respond to this module if it contains back, because my button's actually going to print the text back. And let's go then to our welcome module, the very first module. Or we could send it back to the train or transportation module, depending on which one we want. Okay, let's go out and test that one then. So I'm going to take transportation, I'm going to take train, and there, now we see my train info button and my back button. And you see it has a nice logo, and it still keeps us completely within the chatbot. Whereas if I just had my buttons there, it would take us almost immediately. These buttons here takes us immediately outside of the chatbot. So this is kind of nice and looks a little bit more professional. But again, if I click it, it does the same thing actually that my HTML buttons do. If I click back, well, I have an error in my back button, so let's go and correct that. So I guess it's in my connections. I have it connected to the wrong one. Let's go back to our transportation module. So what that will do is from here, it will go back to our transportation module. And let's test and see if we got that corrected. So one, train, and then back. And there we are.